All right, Julian, are we good? Okay. So it's 7 o'clock, and I have a thumbs up from Julian. We're good to go, so I'll call the meeting to order. Jen, our meeting notice verification. Okay, for the pledge, Eric, you want to lead us tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And how about Ben Garbers for our mission statement?
Serve with passion to ignite creativity, innovation, and excellence.
Okay, for roll call, we have 6 board members here tonight, and I want to read a board announcement relative to the 7th board member. First, I want to share some news. It's both exciting and disappointing. This past Friday, Bob Golnick's home in the village of West Salem officially sold, and he's moved nearby, but his residence is now outside our district boundaries. So first and foremost, congratulations, Bob, on his new chapter. Unfortunately for us, that move means he's no longer able to serve as a member of the West Salem School Board. As a result, Bob will not be participating in tonight's meeting or in any future board business. Bob will be greatly missed. Over the past 18 months, his expertise, dedication, and hard work have made a meaningful impact on our district. So on behalf of the entire remaining board and community, I want to thank him for his service to our students, staff, and families. All right, and Ryan, your team looks good tonight? Yep. Okay. With that, move on to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have an agenda. Item A is our reports, or next section is reports, and item A being our district strategic initiatives update by the superintendent management team. Board, do we have questions on those reports or anything else we want to know more about? All right, Ryan, what else do you have to add?
Well, if you've driven by campus here in the last couple of days, obviously, specifically over at the elementary school, you can see that we have some heavy construction equipment over there, which has become the highlight of the elementary school recess day when they're out there working. Obviously, with the rain that we had on Friday and the downpours that we had throughout the day today, it's become like the second pool that we have on the district right now is behind the elementary school. Not as clean as this one has been that's recently been drained, but it's progressing along. We did put in a erosion fence over by the football field and the track area where they're going to start to work on moving the pole vault pit and the triple jump pit to fit in the new construction that we're going to have at the high school, which groundbreaking will take place on Wednesday, October 8th at 3 p.m. So obviously we'll have a special board meeting next Monday, but for the regular scheduled board meeting, that'll be before that. So third Friday count was last Friday. Sean will be going through the revenue limit worksheet a little bit as we get to the discuss, consider, and take action portion of the meeting tonight. And those numbers, which aren't in officially yet, they'll be a big determining factor as we complete that revenue limit worksheet moving into our October 27th annual meeting.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Board, do we have questions for Ryan before we move on?
No, but if you haven't had a chance to watch the nutrition video, it's hilarious.
Okay. I haven't, so that sounds interesting. Thanks for that tip.
Panther spot?
Was it on? Kids did that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, it looks like item B is our Business Operations Committee update. Eric?
Yep, thanks. So the Business Operations Committee did meet tonight prior to the board meeting. We had 2 topics on the agenda, the revenue limit worksheet preview that Ryan just mentioned, and then also reviewed a request to bring forward to the board a short-term borrowing ask. And so that's later on the agenda tonight.
Okay, board, do we have any questions for Eric? All right, seeing none, we can move into item C, our transportation update. Rick, come on up.
Can you hear me? Ooh, we're good. You'll have before you these here. This is basically an operational synopsis. This is how I function in my world. So the first full spreadsheet is what was last year. So from July through May. It gives a breakdown of what we do monthly, where we fall. Green is obviously good. Yellow is, we got to start focusing a little bit on the yellow, and then red is not good. We need to really focus on that. Having said that, we didn't have any red last year. We were able to, the only challenge we really had was we were short drivers, and we had a lot of trips that we had to negotiate through, but that's sort of the norm lately amongst a lot of school districts around. So we've been able to get through that though. So that's that first sheet. The second sheet is the start of this year's. We had an excellent start of the school year this year. I think this is my 22nd year going to be here, and I was pretty much seamless. It was like we never left, which is really remarkable considering. We started the school year off fully staffed. However, that person since resigned, so we are down one again. We did hire another one, local person. She started, Bobby Gribble. Her son played football here and stuff, and she wanted to join our teams. So I'm excited about that. That's been working out really well for us. So we have 3 buses that we're waiting for. Acquiring vehicles is getting to be more and more difficult, busing especially. Just to give you an idea where we're at with that is we're about 2 years behind. We ordered the buses 2 years ago. We haven't got them yet. What happened in the busing industry is manufacturers would spec buses, kind of like the auto dealerships did the same thing. And we all seen what Ford had several thousand trucks sitting on the lot, and a lot of them didn't sell when they went to the crusher. They never even made it to the market. This is a tax write-off. Well, the busing industry sort of did the same thing across the board. So they manufacture buses, and COVID hit, and nobody was buying buses. So you can imagine how difficult that was for them to recoup that. Fast forward to now, no matter what you buy, it's about a 2-year waiting list, 18 months to 2 years. So I'm keeping ahead of the game. We're ordering buses as we should. Those 3 are expected to be in here sometime in October. We're hoping to get those en route soon. So
The 3 that we're waiting on, is the amount of time that elapsed since we ordered it till now what we expected, or is it longer?
it's a little longer, but we knew it was going to be about 18 months. It's 18 months to 2 years when they told us. So it'll be about 2 years on the dot when we get them, from the time I ordered them.
And
Sean and I have talked about this, so we're trying to stay ahead of the 8 ball on this.
how many more have we ordered just stay ahead of the 8 ball? I mean,
2 more.
2 more, okay.
Yep.
And then next year we'll probably have to order a couple more, just based on how we did our.
Well, Sean and I will talk about that. We have that hard conversation every year, but yeah, we gotta kind of stay ahead of the 8 ball on that. To give you an idea, we have buses that we'll be selling one that's 21 or 22 years old this year. So, our fleet's pretty old. By the time they hit 22 years old, we don't get much for them, to be honest with you. But that's by design, right? I mean, we want to use them up. We don't want to be that district that's selling buses 5 years from now, and it's a lot of money you lose, like anything else. So we try to keep them up and running as long as we can.
What is the average life of buses? Is it like right at 20 years
Well,
for West Salem School District?
no, that's a trick question, really. It depends on a lot of factors. So environmental would be one, safety is another. I mean, you look at a lot of different things, technology. Of course, trying to recruit drivers is huge. So The old buses we bought, they weren't very driver friendly. They were pretty rugged. Our industry is a little, not a little, we're way behind like the auto industry. So whatever you see in the auto industry, it takes about a good 10 years before you'll ever see in a bus. Things like air ride seat or something for comfort, or heated seats, we're just seeing those. Backup cameras, they were just allowed to be installed like 4 or 5 years ago. They've been in the industry for years. So the technology's getting there, but we're always a little slow on that. And I think part of that is because it's each bus is spec'd per state, and every state has their own specs. So you can't just get a bus from, say, Alabama and bring it here.
The last question, service and repair. What does that look like for buses? Are you guys always repairing these things, like every year, or like a car does the last 5 years, and then you just have to start repairing it?
Sure. And that's a fair question. So as they age, you're doing a lot more repair. I actually did 2 major body work repairs on 2 of the buses we have this year. And it's not really optional. You either have to spend the money and do it, or you can't run it because they'll get it put out of service. One of them they did put out of service last year. But the cost of repairing that bus is more than you'd ever see back out of it again. So we just put it on. It's just sitting there, and we'll sell it. Somebody will buy it for the engine and transmission.
Question about and you said something about the environmental kind of impacting the longevity of a bus. Have you seen any difference since we put the bus garage in, however many years ago that was when it came through the referendum? Has that had a positive impact, you think, on the
You mean the
bus fleet?
canopies we put
Yeah.
over? Yeah, the buses aren't enclosed.
Yeah,
They're just
sorry.
like under a canopy.
I think at the time we called it a bus garage when we were putting it on the
From an
referendum.
environmental standpoint, no, it didn't help that at all, really. What it does do is it's more cost effective because our buses are now on a timer that's controlled by 2 ways, by a photo sensor and also by temperature. So the old days, when the drivers came in at night, we plugged them in, and it's 20 buses plugged into an outlet it's drawing 1,800 watts of electricity. It's a lot of electricity that's coming out of there to keep these buses warmed up, and then in the morning they're warmed up. The new system we have now is set on a timer, so that don't come on until 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're not wasting all that energy anymore at night. It's much more cost effective. We also have lights on there, so our security lights come on. We have it set at 5 o'clock, so all the lights will come on at 5 in the morning. And then at night, we just have a few security lights. So we're not lighting up the whole thing anymore. So we're saving a lot of money that way. But as far as environmental, not really. It keeps the ice off the windshields. For the drivers, that helps. But mainly environmental costs I'm talking about. In my year, I've been doing this for 35 years, I think now, going on 35 years. And I've seen in the last 15 years a significant uptick in corrosion. Even the auto dealerships will tell you the same thing. The stuff we're using to prevent bad accidents on the road that liquid stuff it's great to prevent accidents. It's awful on vehicles. It will eat vehicles right up. So we see a lot of corrosion stuff is what we're getting at right now.
Just a quick question. What do you mean by environmental? Like, what is that definition? What is the definition of environmental?
Environmental is what I'm talking about is salt on the roads, climate, heat. Road conditions are a huge one. So, you drive on some of the roads and you shake your teeth loose. And if you drive down on a school bus, you'll see we've had windows fall right out on some of the roads. So it's a real deal. They take a pounding.
I got it. Okay. Thank you.
You know, Rick, a year ago, you were here and you gave the update. You didn't have the technology that you currently have in the bus right now. You were installing that. Why don't you, let the board know a little bit about the technology that you have in the bus for safety measures and whatnot with our students?
Sure. We have we've had TransFinder for several years. We upgraded to Pro here 2 years. Well, this will be our second year on Pro. It's a different operating system than what we had before, and that operates our routing system software. It operates our trip software for trips. It operates our service finder we have for service finder, and we have stop finder. That's the app for parents. Inside the bus or outside the buses and inside the buses, we have camera systems now that have been updated. So we have stop arm cameras, we have forward-facing dash cameras, and we have internal cameras in the bus. That's been very effective in trying to help law enforcement correct some of the behaviors we've had with illegal stopping, which has been significant. We had over 100 last year. They upped the ante on the price. Now I think it's 600 locally and 6 points, I believe. So it's pretty stiff fine. We still see it. We still had, we've already got 8 or 10 already this year. The other thing we have installed in there are tablets. There's a Samsung tablet each driver has. It'll give you like turn-by-turn directions on their routes. We have the capability of doing the reader cards, but we opted not to do that because it's not really cost effective, and it's a few of the districts that I've talked to that had them said it's hard to manage the little ruggers with these. So what we do have is when a driver approaches a stop to pick up kids in the morning, all the kids that will populate on that screen, and the kids come on the bus and they just tap their picture. That essentially assigns them to the bus. Then when they get off at school, they do the reverse so that we know they got on and got off. That's how that's managed. Parents can opt to get the Stop Finder app, and that gives them an idea where the bus is located. It also gives them a path to communicate to me if there's a change in the status of their child, or if they need to be picked up or they don't need to be picked up, or so on and so forth. So communication is key. We're trying to bridge that gap and make sure that we're communicating to the public. Any other questions?
No, I just like to thank you, Rick. I know all the work that you go through and making sure that our fleet is running well, and that you take a lot of time and effort and thought through it. And like the camera system when you brought it to us a couple years ago, and that was a great idea. So thank you for all the stuff that you do.
I had a great team that I work with, so not just me, it's the rest of them.
Well, tell them thank you.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. Do we have any other questions before he wraps up? All right. Looks like next is our connection with the community section. Item A is our board reports by our high school student reps.
Thank you. I'm starting today. So this past Friday, the football team won 13-0 against Arcadia after just 8 minutes of playing due to weather cancellations, and then Arcadia ended up forfeiting. So then the Panthers play this week at Luther for their homecoming, and then the next week we're coming back for our homecoming on the 3rd. The soccer team has had a solid start to their season with a 2-3 record inside the conference, and the team has a game tomorrow against Aquinas. The volleyball team had a tournament in Austin, Minnesota this past weekend where they took first place with a 4-0 record. This past Wednesday, they had a really unique practice to where they went to Fox Hollow and played some beach volleyball as a way for them to connect with their team and bond over dinner. So I thought that was really interesting. Student Council has been staying really busy with homecoming week just a week away. Members are excited for Powder Puff, as I know the seniors are doing their first practice for Powder Puff right now, actually. And also, members are busy in their respective grades, organizing their lip syncs and also floats. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about today before I hand things off to Lydia is our 4 exchange students. So we have 4 this year: Fiona and Frederick from Germany, Joseph from Egypt, and Martina from Spain. I've gotten to know Joseph and Frederick a little close, and I have a class with Martina as well. And I think it's so cool that as a district we have foreign exchange students every year. We had a couple last year that were awesome. One for particular, Anna from Mexico, she was amazing. And I think it's really nice. I think they get a lot from it as they learn a lot of perspective, but also I think we learn a ton about life outside the United States and just perspective as a whole. So I think the opportunity of foreign exchange students on both parties is amazing. And then I'll hand over the rest for Lydia.
Well, and I'll agree with Zeke. One thing that I just saw in class was the other day, Yusuf. We were all done with our work, and Natalie Wright went over to talk to him. So that he was teaching her how to write her name in Arabic, and then he actually gave her like a penny from Egypt too. So like things like that, I thought were really, really cool.
Yeah, and then we had this past game in Arcadia. Yosef went to the football game, and he like came down to the front student section. He was like, "Go football!" Right. So he was just. I love that he feels welcome, and I love that we can support him as a school.
Okay, and then speaking of the football game, the band has spent their last week or so learning a field show for the halftime, but since the game was canceled, we didn't get to perform. So instead, we spent a couple hours in the band room playing games like Ninja and Euchre and learning how to toss color guard flags. But luckily, this Sunday, despite there being rain in the forecast, it held off and the band was able to march at the Applefest parade. So that was fun. A few Fridays ago, we had Cody Greenwood, a motivational speaker, and Rebecca Bruner, a singer who was on American Idol, come to the high school. There was a concert set up with lights and loud music, so that definitely surprised us walking into the auditorium. And then Cody told us a story about his relationship with his father, who sadly committed suicide. And he used a roller coaster analogy to make us think about like who our harness is, like the people who will keep us safe and protected when we feel all thrown upside down. And then we discussed this in our homerooms after. And overall, from what I've heard, students think that this has been one of our best speakers we've had come talk, like most engaging. And lastly, our outdoor education class, which is a senior-only PE class, took their canoe trip on the Black River this last Wednesday. I also got to go on the trip, and everyone had tons of fun. We just had to write our reflections today, and it was all pretty positive stuff. Fortunately, though, in the morning, we got poured on, which is interesting when your canoe is filling with water. But the afternoon was nice and warm, and we got to cook out on the beach, play spike ball. We did a little cliff jumping, and one girl found a cat on the beach, a stray cat, and she canoed the last 2 hours home, and her mom picked her up at North Bend, and she got to take the cat home with her. So definitely a trip to remember.
Yes. Thank you for that update. Board, do we have any questions for Zeke or Lydia? All right, thank you, guys.
Maybe just a comment real quick. So I get the opportunity to travel overseas, specifically to India, and I would agree. Like to witness different cultures is really, I don't say important, but it's really interesting. And so I'm glad you guys get that experience. I would say, yeah, continue to talk to those individuals. I think they can shed a lot of light on what their world is a little bit different than how we live here.
Yeah, I'm in a speech class through EWL, and one of our assignments was we had to like interview someone, and I was tasked to interview Frederick from Germany, and me and him just had like a quick 10-minute conversation, and it's crazy to me how different things are, but it's a really good perspective. I really enjoyed learning just something completely different.
Yeah, and no, like Eric, one interesting thing I remember last year, one of the foreign exchange students was saying, I don't understand why you eat at gas stations. Like, why do you go to gas stations to eat food? That was just mind-blowing to them. So,
Yeah.
anyways, those are the perspectives. Those are the perspectives I think you realize. Like people from England, they don't buy a lot of stuff. They like literally go, at least the ones that I've interacted with, they'll go to the grocery store every 2 days because they have a small refrigerator, right? And they see like we have this huge refrigerator. It just makes you think different, right? So
Yeah. A lot of those foreign exchange students, they have lots of comments about how we do food here in the United States. So very, very, very different.
All right, we're gonna move on. We don't have anything in the correspondence folders for tonight. And do we have anyone for public comment, Jen? No? Okay. Our consent agenda then is gonna include minutes of the regular board meeting of September 8th, 2025, invoices to be paid. We have co-curricular recommendations for head gymnastics coach, head girls basketball coach, head boys wrestling coach, head boys hockey coach, head girls hockey coach, head 8th grade boys basketball coach, and assistant 8th grade boys basketball coach. And our donations tonight are the following. Linda Gust Light donated 25 copies of the book Pollinator Parade to the district. Ben from Unified CST Scale Systems donated a taxidermied bald eagle to the school district. Ethel Johnson donated $50 worth of organic fresh pears from her backyard to the West Salem Elementary kitchen. And Maurice Kia and Chevrolet in West Salem donated $964 to the Fueling Classrooms 2025 fundraiser.
I guess I had one question on the expenses. I talked with Sean beforehand, but there was one on the solar. It was a little bit higher than what the quote was for the fix of the solar panels. So you aware of that, right? Sean? Yeah, so it's just, we were talking beforehand, that is higher
Okay,
than,
so Sean's gonna get you an answer?
yes.
Yep, so Bob's question was in regards to the solar portion of the replacement on the middle school. I remember the solar was damaged during the hailstorm back in 2023. Wow, it seems like a long time, if I'm correct or not. But the estimate for the solar at the time was much lower than was actually billed out, and so the expenditures were actually cost more in order for the replacement. So the conversation will be had between EMC, our third-party adjuster, and Solar Connections on how we recoup some of those funding in order to cover that for the insurance basis. So
Okay, sounds good. Good question.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Is there any additional questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, consent agenda is passed, and we'll move on to our next session, our discuss, consider, and take action, if appropriate, regarding strategic initiatives. Item A is our revenue limit worksheet preview. Is that
Yeah, so this
Sean,
was
or-
reviewed, in the Business Ops Committee, and we'll have Sean walk us through it.
sure. In front of everybody's, at everybody's spot for the board members is a copy of the preliminary revenue limit worksheet for 25-26, and some side notes in order to kind of follow along in some of these options pieces. These numbers are actually from our 24-25 school year, so the annual report just finalized here in September, which this kind of starts that process, and this is also a big piece of your annual meeting, which will happen at the end of October. Some notes within this portion that I've kind of tagged with this was on line 6, which is the pupil membership, which we have the summer school membership in the pupil group, which will be due by the end of September. We just did the third Friday count for all schools just this past Friday on the 19th. So we'll get a harder count number on that portion. So my number is an estimate based off of the previous fiscal year. One of the other larger portions is at the bottom with the proper equalized property value, which with some estimates, talking with Mr. Reber and I, we're talking with Brian Brewer at Baird. They give out equalized value estimates, which will be hopefully finalized here by the end of the week from the Department of Revenue. There was a 12.7% increase in equalized value. Now remember, in the past, we've had 3 to 5% increases, but over the last 3 to 4 fiscal years, we've been in the 10 to 15% range, which this really changes the numbers for the mill rate portion of it. And some of these are due to some municipalities not receiving a full assessment. Some municipalities were missed this past fiscal year, so this is more of a catch-up in some of these other groups. So if you get to page 2 on this revenue limit worksheet, there's line 2, which this kind of gives you the allowed per member per month calculation, which we will be at 11,650. The increase was the 325. As you note with some of the legislation portion this past spring and summer, where they talked about not increasing equalization aid and having communities feel the full effect of the $325 per member, which would be truly a tax burden on the communities, but it will also depend on where you landed within your equalization aid portion of it, which we will look very favorable. We'll get to that portion here in a second. The other part on this is page 2 on line 6. This kind of gives you your calculation for your revenue limit, which is the per pupil portion. So it gives your entire revenue limit that will be used for the 25-26 school year. Line 8E is your reoccurring referendum that was passed just this past November, which will be the 3.5 million that was approved by the voting community, along with the referendum portion. Line 9 H and I is the private school voucher estimate at this point, and this is based off of current full-time equivalents from 24-25. We will know more of that in 25-26, and at this portion, we believe it's, we had about 51 students that were full-time equivalent this past year, and so we'll know a little bit more about mid-October when they put all the numbers together for the schools. Page 2, line 12A, this was our July equalization aid estimate. As everybody knows, this is the calculation where the Department of Public Instruction helps aid school districts within the portion of it. And ours looked at the point in time in July 15th, was an $800,000 increase from the previous year. So this would actually reduce property taxes for the future for citizen and residents of the school district. Also in this portion, when you get to line 15A, you'll see our portion with the debt payment. This is the calculated debt payment, which would include the referendum that we currently just passed back in November. These are starting payments. We will also do another borrowing here in April. So there'll be a third, that'll be 3 of 3. So that'll finalize the project for the 28 million. The community service portion, line 15B, that's the part that services the swimming pool, the fitness center, the Panther Den, and some of the after-school activities within the gyms. And on line 16, which would be our total full tax levy at this portion. Now, keep in mind, some of these numbers are very preliminary, so we'll get to this portion and see how they change. And you'll see the levy rate portion of what that looks like versus the current equalized value. I remember last fall we talked about $8.70 when we passed the referendum. And right now we're looking very favorable at this point. So more news to come.
And we'll give another update of this next week when we have our special board meeting on the 29th as we look at bid pack 3 for the high school construction project. We'll come back with a portion of this again. By that time, we'll have, or we should have, the firm numbers from our third Friday count, and so there'll be some of those other variables within here that we'll be able to fill in to get even more accurate when we get down towards that end, and then we can lay out options that we have as a district moving forward.
Okay, board, do we have any questions before we move on from Sean's update? Okay, thanks. I appreciate the cheat sheet, by the way. That helps. Even me, who's been doing this for a while. All right, we are at item B. That's a resolution that we want to talk about. So I'll go ahead and read it. It says, "Be it resolved that the School District of West Salem will borrow from Union State Bank on a short-term revenue anticipation basis from time to time, in one or more advances, the sum not to exceed $5 million at any one time for the operation of the schools of the district. Be it further resolved that the West Salem School District by its president and district clerk shall execute a promissory note of the school district to be dated September 22nd, 2025, in the amount of $5 million with an interest rate of 5.5%, and payable in full on June 30th, 2026. So this is what we've been doing every year. This is
Yep.
to
that's
keep us
correct.
afloat.
I also left you another little cheat sheet.
Yep.
Kind of go through what our history has been for the last 5 years. This is about 3.5 months worth of borrowing that the school district would need in order to fill the funding gap between our revenue that we receive from the state of Wisconsin, which is the equalization aid, and property taxes that happen in January and February of the current school year. So, my recommendation is to request the $5 million from Union State Bank, our financial institution, to be used as needed.
This was an item we discussed in business ops, and we also recommend approving the resolution.
Maybe Sean, can you just explain the benefit of doing this for those that aren't familiar with it?
Sure, this is kind of the gap filler portion of the school district's need during out the school year. Our largest need is because of the equalization aid payments and 90% of your funding, which comes from state and local property taxes. And at period times of the year, this just fills the gap portion of what our needs are during the year as far as expenditures for salaries and wages and pieces within the general fund and the special education fund. That's probably the major two funds that fills this gap. The other funds cover themselves within their own revenue streams on a consistent basis, but this is the portion that fills those needs with our fund balance currently at 12 to 17%, because we keep a lower fund balance than normal. I shouldn't say normal, that's what we've decided as a school district in order to maintain our liquidity portion of it. So this just fills that gap.
Thank you. So I make a motion to borrow $5 million on behalf of what Sean just said.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for the borrowing resolution. Is there any questions or discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, and that is passed. Item C is our strategic plan reauthorization and update. Ryan, do you have that?
Yeah. I just want to include it in your packet. You can kind of see a breakdown. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go and sit with two individuals from UW Extension that are based out of La Crosse, coming from a recommendation from the school board. I had reached out to one of them, and we met like I said, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, to discuss where we're currently at with our strategic plan, what's a vision that I have and we have for the district in moving forward with this, and setting forth a time frame and a timetable to do that. It helped that we had this conversation in September when we're looking to have anything updated and coming back for board approvals at some point this summer. The meeting was scheduled for an hour, and we sat and we talked for 2.5 hours, and so it felt like it was a very productive meeting with that. One of the things that we did is we looked at our current strategic plan. They gave me some feedback on that, and those things can get shared more in depth later. One of the things that they had indicated, though, was it seemed like we had an awful lot of goals in there. And I said one of the things that we wanted to do was to move to a strategic plan that was driven with goals that we could track. Eventually, my goal with this upcoming document is to create district-wide scorecards in which we could keep track of how we're doing and where we're going with those things. One of the challenges that I talked about with our current strategic plan, when we look at our teaching and learning portion of that, is, we have some pretty stringent and I won't say stringent, some pretty lofty goals within there. One of the things that's been difficult with those goals that are within that, though, is the bar keeps moving when it comes to some of those things that we have in there, as far as the state scorecard and things like that when we look at state assessments. And so, that's one of the things that we're going to look at. And then we kind of talked about the process in which we want to go through and do the strategic plan. One of the first steps in this process, some of the data that we have within the district, I'm going to start to turn over to them. Anything that we've been keeping track of with our strategic plan up to this point, share that with them so they can see where our growth is and where that's been going. One of the things that they're going to task the board with when they come to a board meeting on January 26th, and for them, we're going to have a board development session. We're going to kick that off prior to the 7 o'clock board meeting. We're going to do that at 6, so they're not here at 8, 9 o'clock at night. One of the things that they're going to ask the board is, as you look at the pillars that we have in our current strategic plan, which are teaching and learning, staff engagement, community engagement, and financing, do we want to stay with those same 4 pillars? I have my opinions on that. We'll talk about that at a later time. But really to get the board of, okay, what do you want the pillars to be as we continue to look forward as we look at that? One of the things they asked about how our past strategic plan was put into place. And we talked about that we did use some community survey data with that. We had some open nights in which we invited staff members in. Out of the 325 staff members that we have, there was about 10, 12 people there that night. And, are we really getting a feel of what our staff wants based upon 10 or 12 people showing up? And so one of the things that we've talked about is that they're going to come and be present during one of our in-service days in February to have conversations with our staff, which I think will be beneficial and to use as a litmus with that. They asked if we involved students in the last one, and so they're going to look to involve some students and with a questionnaire with this as well. And then when it came to the community survey, I did overhear last time we were at the board meeting, Zeke was talking about wanting to do a community survey and, just do a random one. And I know that at times, the participation from people when you have multiple surveys going out tends to wane. And so this past week, I've put, first off, Zeke sat with Mr. Yang and myself to talk about whether or not this was in the parameters of his Panther portfolio project, but he'll be working with the 2 individuals that are helping us with reauthorizing our strategic plan to partner with them to learn how these things go. And so Mr. Yang and I both felt that this would be a good opportunity for him to work with a community agency and push things a little bit further, and plus give him a little deeper scope for his Panther portfolio project. This will be driven by the 2 people that we are working with the university, but it's a good partnership and opportunity for Zeke to work with that as well. And so then the overall goal will be to bring the board a updated strategic plan in sometime in the spring or summer of 26 and go from there. So it's a fairly robust process, but it's a good one, which I think we're going to be able to involve a majority of our stakeholders in, which is something that I don't think that we attempted to do it the last time. But I think this is going to give an opportunity for everybody to participate in it, including our support staff. And they'll also be here during one of the para-university times to introduce the support staff to a survey as well.
Just curious, Ryan, how long has the current strategic plan lasted? So I'm curious in the duration of what that was and what's the duration of the future strategic plan is going to be.
We wrote that strategic plan and had that board approved in 2022. So, and that's something I think that as a board, those are things that we can discuss. Do we want this to be a 3-5 year type plan going forward, but the last one we wrote as a 5-year strategic plan, and obviously with that sunsetting, we want to go through the process of getting that updated before it sunsets and continue to do the good things that are in that. Maybe look to, are there areas in there that we can be a little bit more precise with things? And there's a lot of goals in that strategic plan, and part of it is, do we need all those goals in there, and what goals are we going to have that are measurable?
Perfect, thank you.
And I just want to take the time. I just want to thank Mr. Reber and Mr. Yane as well. I'm really excited for this opportunity to work with these two professionals, and I'm really, really excited to make this next strategic plan or have a part in it.
I appreciate that we're going to get some student input on the next strategic plan as part of that, so, and appreciate your wanting to be involved in getting community input. Great. What questions do we have on strategic plan before we move on? Okay, thanks for laying that out. Next up is our list of to-do items and information requests. Ryan, what's changed on there, or board? Do we have anything that we want to add that's not there currently?
I think one of the things that I added on here from last time we met was Justin and I working together to make sure we start to put a list of the equipment and costs that we have with that, and just making sure that as we begin this project that we have the end in mind, and making sure that we can fulfill the needs that we're going to have for those spaces. You did see, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I did send out an email later this afternoon with some updated renderings from that high school project, along with a conversation that I had this afternoon with Kraus Anderson about as we continue to move forward with the updated, with the upcoming bid packages, to look a little bit more in depth so they can share and be a little bit more transparent with some of those bid packages that are coming in, so we can be attentive to some of those things. And I know some of the items that we did talk about that are amendments or things that we're looking to add to that space, those things will be independently bid out and bid through that bid pack 4, which will come at the end of October. And I know that brought some of the concern when we had some of those numbers that were put in there, but by them being transparent with the bid packages that are coming in will allow all of you to be able to look at those, to see where that money is being spent, and making sure that we are, being communicated the totals within those areas that we want, and so you can all be attentive and have some background information if you're asked those things within the community.
I'd like to thank you for doing that, Ryan. I really do appreciate it. I know it's one of my requests, and I really do like the renderings. If ever anybody has not had a chance to look at them, you can click on the PDF, and it has a 3D view and rendering of all the different spaces that we have within the school district. It's really nice, actually.
And I shared them with you. I know Justin's gonna, share them with his staff coming up here at some point. Once they're shared with his staff, then those will, there'll be pieces of those renderings that will be in the October newsletter that comes out once he shares those with staff.
Yeah, just echo what Bob said. It's really exciting. I mean, when you start seeing pictures of something, then you start getting really excited about it. So thanks for sharing, Ryan.
Anything else on the to-do items? All right, if not, that would end our live stream, and we'll move into closed session. The board will discuss, consider, and if appropriate, take action pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility regarding the employment and compensation of a district employee. Would someone like to make a motion to go into closed?
I'll make a motion to go to close.
Second.
All right, Jen, you want to do a roll call? Yes.